Thank you for having us on the radio here at KFLIP 100.5 FM. We're at Burning Flipside 2018, and it's so exciting. This is the 20th anniversary of the event.
How exciting is that?
And this is Beverly and Cobra from the Cobra bus at Camp Creation Flame. The title of our talk show today is How to Balance the Inequity of Labor Between Doers and Non-doers in a Burner Camp.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okie dokie.
What's your burner experience?
Let's see. I did my first burn the end of 2013. It was freezer burn, and then Flipside was my second burn ever in 2014. And since then, I've been to a few more Flipsides, some regional burns in Iowa, Michigan, and I've been to the big burn at least 3 times.
Nice. I've been to Burning Man every year since '08. The big burn was my first burn. And then I'm Chicago-based, so I've been to the regional Lakes of Fire up there in Michigan a whole number of times. And then, yeah, in Iowa, I've been here to Flipside a number of times. And, yeah, I've been doing this for quite a while.
And by the way, we are camping with Creation Flame at address 213 in the Cobra bus. So if you are interested in performing on our fire stage later tonight or tomorrow, we're going to have flame effects and our stage going, and we'd love to see you there.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, Cobra, who
Yes.
is the intended audience for this talk anyway?
The people that we want to reach specifically are camp leads, camp mayors, team leads, maybe frustrated camp members, anybody who's been part of a camp where the doers are out contributing the non-doers as far as labor and, set up, tear down, day-to-day stuff during the week, that sort of thing. So it's these people that we want to talk to. So if you're listening to this broadcast right now, and you know somebody who would really be into this information.
Yeah, like somebody who's been griping about it or really had a hard time recently and would like to know a solution or a way out.
Yeah, if you know someone like this, go get them.
Yeah.
Right now, go, run, go get them, and get them to this radio.
So while we're waiting for anybody else who wants to come in and hear this, Cobra, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your history and why this is an important topic to you?
This is an important topic to me. I've been the camp lead of my Burning Man camp every year since 2009.
How did you get started in the burning community?
What I did was my first burn was 2008, and it was a very solitary experience for me, but a very, very powerful one. So when I came back to Chicago, I found myself on eBay looking at buses, in particular old retired school buses, and not knowing why. And then eventually it sort of dawned on me that what I was doing was looking for a bus. I wanted to purchase a bus, and I wanted to bring as many people to this crazy, crazy event as I could. So by Thanksgiving of that year, 2008, I had bought a bus and have been making the trip from Chicago to Playa every year in it since 2009. And so actually this year, 2018, will be the 10-year anniversary of the Cobra bus making the trip from Chicago to Playa and back.
And that's 2,000 miles each way, isn't it?
Yeah, 2,000 miles each way. If we go straight.
Yeah.
There's been years where we take quite a bit of detour, particularly on the way back, and stop at intentional communities to volunteer or do events and fire shows. Sometimes we travel with a fire performance troupe, and we can take many weeks and go many miles out of our way to get back to Chicago. So that's sort of my experience, and having led my camp at Burning Man every year, I have some experience and opinions about those that participate and show up and do, and those that tend not to. How about you?
My extended intro would include, I think this is a really neat story about my connection with KFLIP and with Flipside here and with you. Like I said, Flipside was my second regional burn ever, and I was a campmate right here at KFLIP. But I was also in a situation where I didn't really like how my life was going, but I had dreams, I came to Flipside and I was out for a walk by myself, and I had this really strong intention that my home, my location, and my community would begin to match my mission, my values, and my desires. And as I walked around holding this intention in my heart, I walked straight into another camp called Creation Flame, where there was this big crazy silver bus and some people I'd already met the night before and this guy named Cobra. And I found out that he had this bus and he'd just come back from this really cool 6-month journey to Central America volunteering with this big crew and had a lot of really cool ideas about his mission in life that really resonated with me, and we got to be very good friends, and we stayed in touch. A year later, it turns out that I was coming back to Flipside with him as a resident of the Cobra bus and his partner. So that's my story. Thank you, KFLIP guys, for getting me to where I am now.
Right, so Beverly's my partner. So she's been living on the bus ever since then. That was
2014 when we met. So this is our meet-iversary, guys.
Yep. I think it's today. It might actually be today. So yay, so that's a little bit about us. We are on KFLIP.
At Burning Flipside 2018. Again, we're Beverly and Cobra from Camp Creation Flame. So let's launch into the meat of our talk. The title of this conversation is How to Balance the Inequity of Labor Between the Doers and Non-doers in a Burner Camp. So Cobra, can you go into a little more detail about what that means?
I can, actually. There's two types of people, as far as I'm concerned, in a burner camp. There's the doers and the non-doers, and that's right there in the title, right? And I think that we can sort of know who they are generally speaking. The doers are the ones that are always stepping up. They're always a yes. They can always be found. And then there's the people that aren't doing as much as the doers. And at first, something like that can be okay, but after a while, throughout the course of the burn event, whether it's a regional burn or Burning Man, that kind of inequity can get old. And doers can burn out, they can become bitter, and basically the experience of a burn can become much less fun if one's a doer and has some non-doers in camp.
Can you give us some more examples of like what defines a non-doer? Like,
I put a little bit of thought into this, and I can basically break down non-doers into 3 different categories. There's an obvious category. It's a sparkle ponies. We know that term, sparkle ponies. It's someone who maybe it's their first burn or maybe their second burn, and they're not properly acclimated to burner culture. So these are people that show up. They don't understand, fully what's going on. Maybe
they're not prepared
and that sort of thing. They're not prepared. They just don't know. Didn't read the survival guide. Don't know. And they're not completely self-reliant. And then another type of non-doer, there's the legitimate no-shows, as I like to call them. A legitimate no-show is somebody who might very well be a doer, but for whatever reason they're not able to show up and to do. And that might be, maybe there's a medical emergency, maybe someone twisted their ankle on playa, or on their way to playa they have a family emergency of some type, or a work emergency, and they just can't get away from work or whatever. So that's a legitimate, someone has a really legitimate reason to not show up and to participate. And then there's another category, this is the third type, and I call these ones scam flakes. Scam flakes. Yeah, these would be burners that they're beyond sparkle pony. They understand how things work. They know how much labor goes into setting up camp and to tearing down camp, and they find ways to not show up anyhow. Those are the 3 types.
You used a term that I really liked when we were talking about this before, like what happens when the non-doers are not doing their share and the doers are picking up the slack.
Okay, nice. I heard a term once that I love. I love this term. When I first heard it, it wasn't actually associated with this situation. The term, however, is forced gifting.
Forced gifting.
That's the term. I love it. And it really it fits well in this situation, in this way. Let's say somebody, I'm going to use the big burn as an example. If someone shows up to the big burn, let's say on Tuesday, if things are running smoothly in camp, their camp is way set up by Tuesday.
Right, because the people have been there since like Sunday night.
Yeah, their gates open, assuming that they didn't even have EA passes. So if someone shows up on playa on Tuesday and they just walk into camp, hey, how are you? And everyone's happy to see them and whatever. That's all great, but what's happening by default is that the person who shows up on Tuesday is actually forcing everybody who showed up to set up camp. They're forcing those people to gift them the gift of a camp that's magically set up when they arrive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and someone can show up Who knows why they didn't show up? It doesn't matter. But if they showed up late, they're forcing everybody to gift them that gift. That's an example of a doer's doing for the non-doer.
So it's clear there's a problem that probably affects the functioning of camp if enough people are not pulling their weight, but there's also a quality of life issue for the doers as well if they're picking up all the slack. So you as the camp mayor, what's that like to be at the helm and have that situation on your hands?
For me, I'd like to watch that play out over and over in different ways, in different forms, in different years. It actually, it begins to be quite painful for me. Because I'm a doer, I can spot a doer. I know what they look like. And when there's doers in camp that are always picking up the slack, it just hurts. It hurts for me to see that. It hurts the dynamic of the camp. It's not right for me to be at the helm of the entity that is unfair to the doers. I don't like that at all.
For me, it would be difficult to having to be monitoring everybody and like cracking the whip on these non-doers.
That's not why I'm there. If I were there cracking the whip, that would be sucking the joy out of the event. It's already sucking joy to have non-doers sort of like riding by on everyone's coattails, but I don't want to step into that place of being an asshole either, and to make all these rules and be cracking the whip. I'm not interested in that.
Right. What have you observed other theme camps doing to deal with this issue?
This issue is pretty all over the place. There's probably not a theme camp in all of Bernerdom that hasn't experienced this problem in one form or another. And different camps have different ways of dealing with it. The way that I've seen dealt with it is, and this one's kind of popular, in the spirit of being radically inclusive, people will get into camp with very little references or no interview or whatever. It's like, yeah, come on, you want to camp with us.
Right, friend to friend.
Friend to friends, partners, sometimes. This person seems really cool. Let's have them in camp, And then they turn out not to be so great. Well, the way most theme camps deal with that situation is that if somebody turns out to be a nightmare in this respect, they simply don't get an invitation to come back the next year.
Right.
But the issue is that it never protects the doers from this dynamic. The doers are perpetually open to being taken advantage of in this way, and that's just not a fun place to be.
Always having to solve the problem in hindsight, but there's no solution to heading it off in the beginning.
Correct, yeah.
Let's talk about the solution you came up with.
The solution. Yeah, here it is. This is a solution that came to me slowly over a bunch of years and a bunch of bad experiences. So I've come up with a system that deals with this issue on the front side rather on the back side. The system has a name, and it's called a participation deposit. So there's actually a deposit that's made in dollars, and the participation deposit operates as follows. And I have to point out, too, this is aside from camp dues. This is not camp dues. My camp in particular on Playa is always a free camp. And there's other camps on Playa, they'll charge $200 or $400 or whatever to be in their camp. And the participation deposit can be on top of camp dues. I have to point that out right off the bat. For my camp, participation deposit is $300. $300. That's how much the participation deposit is. And it's actually 3 separate $100 deposits.
Okay.
$100 is goes towards camp setup. $100 goes towards the day-to-day operations of the camp during the week or during the course of the event. And then there's another $100 deposit that goes towards camp teardown.
All right.
And so how the deposit is ideally supposed to work is that somebody agrees to be in the camp, they pay for their $300, they show up and participate fully for the setup, they participate fully during the week, they participate fully towards teardown, and then at the end of the event, they get their $300 back. Kabam, right? That's how it's supposed to work. In a perfect world, if everybody showed up fully, that's how it would work. But we don't live in a perfect world.
Yeah.
As I pointed out before, we have the non-doers not show up and non-do for any number of reasons. So once the deposit gets paid in, I'm going to use the example of a camp setup. I like that example. Let's say that somebody doesn't show up to the big burn until Tuesday, like I said. So what happens to their participation deposit is that $100 of their deposit goes away from them. it evaporates from them, right? Because they weren't there
Right.
to set up
They're
camp.
not getting it back.
Yeah, they're not getting it back.
That portion.
They basically paid $100 to have camp set up for them, for the privilege, basically, of having a camp magically set up for them that they can just walk into on Tuesdays, right? So that $100 goes away. The big question here is, what happens to that $100?
Where does it go?
When I'm explaining on the front side of a burner event about this participation deposit, I ask, where does it go? Where do you think it goes? And the answer could be anything like, well, it goes toward camp infrastructure or fuel for the bus.
So this is just what people have guessed in the past.
They guess that, and they're not bad guesses. That's a reasonable thing to do with that money. But what's wrong with that is that it still doesn't take care of the inequity of labor between the doers and non-doers, because that's the point here, right?
Right. You're benefiting from that scenario.
Yeah, or the camp as a whole is benefiting from that. If it were to go to, let's say a shade structure or something like that. So no, that $100 that went away from that individual that didn't show up, where that goes is it actually gets divided up and redistributed to all the people that were there to help set up camp in the first place.
Okay, let me kind of clarify that. So I show up, I'm there the first day, I help set up camp, I paid my $100 dues, and my friend couldn't make it in because her work schedule wouldn't allow her to, and then she shows up on Tuesday, her deposit goes away from her, and then I'm going to get part of it for being
Correct.
there.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to get divided up between you because you showed up and everybody else that was there to show up too. So just to use a couple of examples here, let's say there's 20 people in camp, and let's say that one person doesn't show up. So there's 19 other people there, and the one person who didn't show up, their $100 gets divided up between the other 19 people, and it's like $4 and change or whatever to the other 19 people. It's not a lot of money.
No.
But it's something, right? And part of that too is that if 19 people show up and one person didn't, the additional burden of labor, it's not a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't huge.
So it's a small thing. So small amount of additional labor, and then a small portion of a participation deposit, you get that increase.
Right. It's almost more symbolic, but it's meaningful.
It is. Yeah, exactly. It's almost the equivalent of if you were all in default world and the one person didn't show up, they would like buy a round of drinks at the bar. Right. To like show their appreciation, and so every person gets $5.
Right.
$5 beer or whatever. Then everything's even. The energy exchange is more even, and everyone's happy, right?
Yeah.
So let's say now that in that same 20-person camp, instead of the one person not showing up, let's say that 10 people don't show up.
Whoa, okay.
That's a lot. Like, let's say half the people don't show up to set up camp, so you have 10 people doing and 10 people non-doing. Like, how much is that going to suck for the doers?
A lot.
A
lot more.
Yeah, lots. If you have a situation in camp where 10 people are showing up and 10 people aren't, that's going to get really old really fast.
Yes.
Yeah? So now let's come back to the participation deposit. So if the 10 people didn't show up, 10 people sacrifice their $100 each, so that's $1,000 that gets redistributed between the 10 people that did show up.
Wow. Yeah, that's something.
That's a little more, right? It's like all of a sudden, instead of being bitter about people that didn't show up till Tuesday, all of a sudden everyone that is there is getting $100 additional in their participation deposit when they get it back at the end of the event.
Yeah, it makes it a little less painful.
Yeah, that sort of illustrates how this sort of a thing would work and how the energy exchange would be more equal.
And so this is going on for the ongoing camp functioning during the week, the second $100 section, and then the third $100 section is the camp teardown.
Exactly, right, yeah, so we're not finished at camp setup. This is going to continue on throughout the week because the inequity of labor can happen all throughout.
So when do people pay the deposit to you? Like when does that happen? Like how far in advance?
It's in advance. Absolutely, positively in advance. If somebody wants to pay me the deposit on Playa, my response to that is, please find somewhere else to camp, because that ain't going to happen. It's important to me that the participation deposit is paid far in advance of the event. So far, in fact, that if I extend an invitation to somebody to be in my camp, and they're a yes to my invitation, their yes to me isn't actually a yes. Their payment of the participation deposit is actually the yes. It's nice to hear the word yes, but the reality is that they're not marked down as a yes in my little book until the participation deposit funds are in my control.
Right, so that's kind of like they're putting money down on their commitment to be in the camp and participate in this participation deposit program.
Exactly, yes. And one other thing that I have to point out, too, is that it's like who needs to pay the deposit? Is it just the people that are new to my camp?
Oh, yeah.
And the answer to that is nope. Everybody pays. It doesn't matter how well I know them. It doesn't matter how many times they've camped with me in the past and proved themselves as thorough doers. Even I pay into this pool, and I have really good reason for that. First of all, I don't want there to be like two classes of people in camp, right? We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And then after that, I never know, even though I have all the intention on planet Earth to participate fully from very beginning to very end, I cannot promise that's going to happen. What if I fall off of a piece of art and twist my ankle on playa?
Right.
And then I can't help with a camp teardown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if that happens, I am not exempt from compensating the doers in camp if I become a non-doer by default.
Okay. What if someone pays the deposit, they're yes to camp, and they're coming, and then at the last minute they have to cancel, they can't come at all? Is the deposit refundable?
Yeah, it totally is. And my response to that is if somebody doesn't show up to camp at all, then they're not taking anything from the doers.
There's been no forced gifting happening.
They haven't forced anybody to gift anything to them in my camp. So even if they choose to camp at another camp or they can't go to Burning Man or whatever, no problem. Here's your deposit back.
From what I've seen, you're the only person who's identifying where people have participated or not and deciding how to redistribute the funds. How could a larger theme camp implement this system when there's like 50 to 100 or more people? Yeah,
that's an interesting question. The size of my camp at this point has been that I'm there and I can see with my own eyes who's showing up, who's not showing up, who's wherever. I can see that. And so in a larger situation, presumably, like in my camp, I'd have to say that there's different teams, and each team has a team coordinator. Like there's a team coordinator that would manage water evaporation, like gray water evaporation, or a team that would manage garbage and recycling, or fresh water, or whatever. So if my camp were to grow to, like, let's say 100 people, then I would be relying on my team coordinators to fill me in on things that I couldn't actually see with my own eyes.
Mm-hmm. Let's do a quick station ID break. This is KFLIP 100.5 FM coming to you from Burning Flipside 2018. And this is Beverly and Cobra from the Cobra bus at Camp Creation Flame. And we are talking about how to balance the inequity of labor between the doers and the non-doers in a burner camp.
Yeah, so we're at Camp Site 213 here at Flipside. We've got a big silver school bus with a performance stage on top and flame effects. So if anybody wants to stop by and talk about this further, we're always available to talk more about it.
Yeah. All right. This participation deposit, you implemented this last year at Burning Man 2017. And
yes,
what
I
did you discover?
So yeah, it took me a number of years to actually, and a number of hard experiences to get to the place where I'm going to implement this. And I've learned a bunch of things. But part of why it took me so long to implement this is that I was kind of afraid of stepping into that asshole place that I was mentioning earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I learned is that in explaining this process to potential campmates, I learned that the sparkle ponies and the scam flakes, as I call them, the people that are sort of like looking to not participate fully and to ride on the labor of others, I learned that those people, all of a sudden, they find somewhere else to camp. Oh my God, how about that? Just as an example, I had one individual who camped with me for several years and was all about, I'm going to camp with you, no problem, this is going to be great. And this is a person that in years past would always manage to somehow book a flight, their flight home, exactly during camp teardown. like 3 years in a row. It's like, wait a minute. You can't manage to book a flight in such a way that you can participate to tear down camp? Is this like not possible? And so this person wants to camp with me yet again, and I explain this great new system that I have, and then all of a sudden, oh, you know what? I'm not going to be there for camp teardown, and you know what? I might not be there for camp setup either. You know what? I'm gonna see what my other options I have, and sure enough, this person who was all gung-ho to camp with me found somewhere else to camp, and that's completely fine with me. The only problem I have with that is now that this person is somebody else's problem. So that's one of the things I learned. To sum that up, is that a lot of the people that know that they're a problem, on some level they know they're a problem, they deselect themselves from my camp. And that was a very pleasant surprise, because I was worried that I would have to like be hard on people in camp, and it's like, oh no, they go somewhere else. Yeehaw. And one of the other things that I learned is that the real doers, they're happy to pay it. I was afraid that I would get all kinds of pushback from everybody, and it's like, no. I got resistance from the scam flakes, and then they don't follow through with their deposit. And then the real doers, they're like, oh, they're happy to pay. They're happy to be part of the system, because they totally see that for all the extra labor that they do, they're going to be compensated for it. And their burn experience is going to be that much nicer. And even to the point, Beverly, and this actually happened, where somebody knew that they weren't going to show up till Tuesday. And they knew that they're going to have to leave early, but they appreciated the whole thing so much that they were happy to pay.
Wow.
They understood the value of it, and they're happy to pay it. It's like everybody that is a yes to this ends up being happy to pay in the event that they are not able to participate fully, because they get it.
Wow. Nice.
Another thing that I learned is that there would be times when I would have to make judgment calls on the ground. There was a situation that I didn't completely foresee, and that's, what if somebody is present and doesn't fully show up?
Meaning, like, do the work that they were supposed to be doing with the camp.
Exactly.
They're there, but they're not really there.
But they're not there. And that did happen. And I've talked to some camp leads about this situation. And when I mention it, they like roll their eyes and smile. It's like, yeah, we got those people too. And they're the ones that are there for teardown, as an example. They're there for teardown, but they're not helping to tear down. They're only tearing down like their own tent.
Right.
They're only packing up their own stuff.
Not the community camp structures and things. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't count. Like, when we're there to tear down camp, it's tearing down the camp. And then once camp is torn down, then we can all tear down our own tents and pack our own cars. But until everything is torn down first, the agreed upon common infrastructure and stuff, until that happens, tearing down our own stuff, that doesn't happen. So what happened was, this last year in camp, some people drove their own vehicles. And how I run the camp at Burning Man is that we take very frequent breaks. Like every 30 minutes, we'll circle up, find out who's done what, who's got what to do, split up into teams, and then hit it again for another 30 minutes, and then we reconvene again, right? And so what would happen with certain people is they would be a part of the meeting, they would agree on what they were going to be doing next and who they're going to be helping next, and then upon breaking up at the meeting, they would go straight to their car and start packing it, and not helping the people that they agreed to help with. And it turns out, like these particular people, they actually ended up needing to leave at a certain time, which is fine, but they're not helping. And so in that situation, what I had to do is, after I, called them out on it a few times, and it's like, look, if this keeps happening, you're not going to get the deposit back. I just can't give it to you in full. I had to arbitrarily come up with a percentage that I felt was fair of how much they were showing up compared to their campmates.
Nice.
And it worked really well. After Burning Man was over, like maybe a week or so after, I'd taken some notes, and then I've come up with a little spreadsheet, like who wasn't there, who showed up on Tuesday, who showed up halfway during teardown, who did all this stuff, and I filled out the spreadsheet, divided up the participation deposit evenly, and I PayPal'd it back to everybody in camp and emailed them the spreadsheet so everybody was completely clear on who showed up to what degree and who was getting back however much of a deposit based on how everybody in camp was showing up.
Right, so it's completely transparent to everybody in camp how you were redistributing the deposit.
Absolutely transparent. Transparency is very important for me. The buck stops with me. Anyone has a problem with it, talk to me. And as it turned out, for this year in camp, nobody had a problem. Everyone was totally happy. Even the people, I gotta say, that were only there halfway for teardown got back more of a deposit than they paid in because they were there. They showed up fully for setup and during the week, whereas other people didn't. So they actually got more than their $300 back.
Even though there was a portion that they missed out on.
Correct. Yeah, even though they sacrificed part of their teardown deposit, and everybody was happy.
Great.
There's another aspect to the participation deposit that's really kind of lovely, and that is, what if somebody wants to gift?
Camp set up or tear down to somebody or something.
Yeah, what if they want to gift it? Let's say, like for you, you're my partner. What if you couldn't show up till Tuesday?
Right.
Would I be taking money from you?
Right.
Actually, no. I would be happy to gift you camp setup. So if Beverly didn't show up till Tuesday and I wanted to gift her camp setup, then after I received her portion of the deposit that she sacrificed for not being there for camp setup, I would simply gift that dollar amount back to her.
Right.
Yeah, I would gift it back to you. If it was like $15 or $20 or whatever it would have turned out to have been, I would take that and put it right back in your PayPal account because I would want to gift that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's part of the beauty of the whole system, is that by default everybody gets compensated for those that don't do for whatever reason. But then if anybody wants to turn around and give that as a gift, they totally have the option to do that. And so one of the other things is that this whole system, it was surprising to me how clean it felt. Because we implemented this system, there was zero animosity between any of the camp members. There was no bad feelings of any kind. And if somebody didn't show up, like I said, it didn't matter why.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter. There's no judgments around it. If there's a scam flake, if they have a really good reason, or if they were a sparkle pony, it doesn't matter. No judgments, no nothing. It was very clean.
Nice. And you didn't feel like you had to be the a-hole to...
I didn't have to be an asshole. It all worked itself out. I mean, I had to be firm on the front side. There's no iffy or wishy-washy about this on the front side. But once people were agreed to the concept and they were all okay with it, it was completely smooth sailing, much more so than I would have guessed. And all the fear that I had in the years leading up to implementing a system like this, it was no fear at all.
Why? Yeah, why were you worried?
Why was I afraid? I don't know. Why?
Well, congratulations on coming up with this.
Yeah, I'm very happy about coming up with this. I have to say, I've never heard of anybody implementing anything even remotely similar to this. And in 2017, I also have to say, I was part of the Burning Man Global Leadership Conference in Oakland, California, and this was very much a topic of what people were wondering about. There's many things that were being talked about and wondered about, but this is one of them. How do you balance this inequity in these camps? How do you deal with the non-doers? And as far as I see it, this is very much a solution that can be spread all throughout all of Burnerdom, this participation deposit. And I'm very interested in seeing in the years to come if this is something that becomes popular and spreads, or if it's, no one cares about it or whatever. I mean, I'm just very curious as to see what happens with this.
Right. Yeah, I hope you'll have more opportunities to get the word out about this as well. Maybe future talks at another leadership conference.
Hopefully in the future, or I could actually see this broadcast as possibly being a podcast. So maybe if one is hearing this, not at Flipside, but somewhere in the future, then that's a really good thing. I want to thank KFLIP for allowing us this opportunity to talk about this. This has been a lot of fun for me.
Me too. Me as well. I'm wondering who is coming up next. It looks like, Modine and Gigamat are going to come up next with Rarities and Oddities. That's going to be a good one.
So thank you again to KFLIP. Again, Cobra and Beverly, we're at Camp Creation Plane, Camp 213. Just look for the big silver bus.